I would like to make an argument why it's rational for you to be very skeptical of facts that come from someone who holds you or a group you belong to in contempt. And this idea is something that I think is playing a big part in the story that's unfolding on social media. So to explain this, first I would like to just define contempt. Then we'll do a thought experiment going back 3,000 years to when humans were evolving. Then we'll look at a few more facts that argue this is actually rational. And finally, I'd like to just a little bit connect this to social media and the problems we're seeing there. So first, what is contempt? Contempt is an attitude of disgust arising from long-standing negative thoughts about a group or person. It's where you view that person or group as being morally inferior, intellectually inferior, or beneath consideration. What does contempt sound like? I think it has a tone, and that tone is generally, ugh, those people, or ugh, you again. That's the tone. Now, I came up with that definition, but I came up with it reading a lot of other people. Probably the most important person on this is John Gottman, who is a marriage researcher and finds that contempt is the #1 predictor of divorce. Behaviors that John Gottman associates with contempt are sneering, sarcasm, name-calling, eye-rolling, mockery, hostile humor, and scorn. Gottman says the antidote to contempt is respect, and it is pretty much the opposite of respect. That's contempt. Now let's rewind 3,000 years to do a thought experiment in a time when humans were evolving and their conditions were more like the situation when most of human evolution took place. That is, hunter-gatherer societies and even early agricultural societies. A couple of facts that we need to keep in mind about the way humans evolved. One was famine or hunger and starvation were actually way more common than today. Like, those were real risks to both individuals and populations. Another key fact here is that we know humans are a very social species, and social hierarchy matters. Now, we're imagining you as a member of a tribe or a community back then. And we can tell if there are scarce resources, there's a food shortage. The group may give more of that food to people higher up on the hierarchy. So you really, really want to make sure not to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. That's important, where there's risk of food shortage. And we could even imagine a situation where the group had to decide who didn't get to eat, or decide who had to die if situations sort of meant that the whole tribe could not survive. This might make you really sensitive to the way others in the group perceive you. And human beings do spend a lot of time trying to manage other people's perception of us. Now, how does this relate to contempt? We might imagine if a population were beginning to see a food shortage, beginning to get worried about whether everyone in their group could survive, they might want to psychologically prepare themselves to let members of the group die. Of course, we're a highly social species, meaning we've evolved to care about each other, to develop unity in our group, to rally around the common interest of the group. So it might seem like that would go against this to actually kick members out of the group. But it might have also been necessary if there really was a food shortage that the whole group could not survive. In which case, I guess what I'm proposing here is that contempt might be the psychological mechanism by which people oust members of their group. It's a mechanism to handle famine. That's my hypothesis. One argument in favor of this hypothesis is the fact that contempt is highly associated with disgust, that you're disgust at people, that you start to view them as vermin or disease or something that should not be a part of the group, which is protective of the group, right? Disgust has this protective quality to it. When you start applying disgust to humans or to groups of humans, some people have argued that is our way of moving toward extermination of that group. And I'm just trying to create a possibility of the reason this might have evolved. So that's the thought experiment about contempt 3,000 years ago and its function in the evolution of mankind. But of course, this video is about why you should be skeptical of facts coming from someone who holds you in contempt. So I want to say a few things about facts, which are somewhat obvious but should be said as steps in my argument. Obviously, facts can be manipulated. You can give true facts that have an intention to do something unethical. Facts are tools. We don't just spout out facts randomly. Facts are within arguments that sort of fulfill some purpose. And maybe that purpose is curiosity, or maybe that purpose is manipulation of others, seeking our own power, whatever. Facts have a place, and that place is something that has use to the person giving the fact. Next, it's not always obvious what someone's purpose with facts is. Are they saying this to help the community? Are they saying this to take down a competitor? Are they saying this to feed their own ego, trying to raise their status within the group? There's lots of reasons someone could give out facts, and you can't always figure out which, since you can't mind read. The next thing I want to bring up is Jonathan Haidt's Elephant and the Writer. And of course, this analogy goes way back into antiquity, but I like the elephant and the writer. It's just so visual, where the elephant is our inclinations, our instincts, our emotional reaction to something. And the writer is our reason and our logic. And basically, the analogy here is that the elephant kind of drives your beliefs, your intuitions, your speech, all of that stuff. And the writer is kind of a PR person for the elephant, making excuses for what the elephant is doing, trying to make sure that you look really good despite your elephant having its way. I also want to say here that I personally have not given up on the writer for having some influence and control, just as Jonathan Haidt doesn't. But the elephant has a lot more control over the way we perceive the world, and certainly our use of speech, than the writer. Proportionately, the elephant is kind of in the driver's seat. Okay, finally, if someone holds you in contempt, like if it becomes obvious based on their tone, their speech, the kinds of things they say, that they view you as morally inferior, intellectually inferior, and beneath consideration, that is, then their elephant has certain beliefs which are in some ways potentially preparing to oust you from the group, to exterminate you if need be. In which case, if that motive is there and these facts are coming out of their mouth as a tool, should you trust those facts? Well, those facts may be true, but just because they're true doesn't mean you should trust them coming from their mouth. This video is my argument to be very skeptical about facts that come from someone who holds you or a group you belong to in contempt. Now, this relates to social media. I think contempt is way increasing now that social media algorithms have their way, and simultaneously, misinformation, disinformation, trust in facts, all of that kind of stuff is going haywire. I think these are connected. I think the concept of contempt is really important for understanding what's going on in the world right now. And so to end this video in hope, I always try to end my videos with hope. I just want to point out that Gottman says the solution to contempt is respect. So the question is, can we program the algorithms to increase respect for people, respect for groups, rather than contempt? In the long run, I think we can. In the short run, we are not near heading in that direction yet. But there's hope, That's what this channel is about. It's about what are the descriptions of the problem that are accurate? What are the possible solutions, which might involve blockchain? They might involve different formats of governance. They might involve active listening skills, all of this kind of stuff. I do believe there's a lot of hope in this tool set we have. And this channel really is about trying to lay out the problem and the solution.